And now these people come who are agents of fasad and say, we will not allow you to live that way. And so they take them out of the setting in which they are living, the primitive way of life, and bring them into what I call the blue jeans Jamaat. And so we have two ages. We have that age and we have this age. And you can now understand the world in which you live, and you can now look back to see the world that you could have lived in. This is the Quran addressing mankind. If only we'll take a little time to go to the Quran. Have they been released? Or are they still behind the barrier? Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam is asleep at the home of his wife Zainab radiallahu ta'ala anha. And he sees something in his sleep, and the hadith is in Sahih Bukhari, I think about 6-8 times. Different versions. He sees something in his sleep which is terrible, 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 terrible. And he wakes up from his sleep, it's a vision, and his face is flushed red. What did he see? And he says to her, وَيْلٌ لِلْعَرَبِ مِنْ شَرٍ قَدْ اقْتَرَبَ. Woe unto the Arabs because of a great evil which has now been released. Now it's close upon them. And then he raised his hand like this, and he said, today a hole has been made in the radam. That's the word used, radam, that Zulkarnain built, indicating that the release of Gog and Magog, which can only take place when Allah chooses. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّ جَعَلَهُ دَكَّاءَ. The release has now commenced, so the barrier is going down. She then asked, أَنُهْلِكَ, will we be destroyed? And there are righteous people living amongst us? He said, Na'am. We meaning the Arabs, because he said, وَيْلُ لِلْعَرَبِ. Will we be destroyed when there are righteous people living amongst us? He said, Na'am. إِذَا كَثُرَ الْخَبَثِ. When khabath, nastiness, immorality, what today can be called moral garbage, when it prevails, at that time the destruction of the Arabs will take place. We are now living on the very brink of the destruction of the Arabs. On the very brink of it. It's a terrible time coming ahead of us. And so from the hadith in Sahih Bukhari, it is as plain as daylight. And from our examination of the world around us, it is as plain as daylight that Allah brought down that barrier long years ago. That Gog and Magog, who are human beings. So you can't recognize them by looking at them. You have to recognize them by their conduct, or you could use the word footprints, no? By their conduct. That's how you recognize them. They've been released long ago. But if you say they have not been released, then I have the right to ask, where is the barrier? You don't even need to travel to the Caucasus Mountains. There's something called the internet now. You may have heard of it. And something called Google Earth. And you could just, Imam, you could just type, and the Caucasus Mountains right there on the screen. And you can move around, you get the Dariel Gorge. And when you look, it's a big military highway now from Russia coming down south. Barrier is not there anymore. If you say that you cannot have your cake and eat it at the same time, if you say that Gog and Magog have not been released, the barrier is still there, which is the majority opinion, unfortunately. And I show no disrespect for my brothers, the learned scholars of Islam. That's not my style. Then we have the right to respectfully ask them, where is the barrier? And why are you not making an effort to go and search for such a historic construction which is in the Quran? If it is still standing there, how can you eat biryani for dinner and go to sleep? Huh? Why are we in this situation? I have been lecturing on the subject of Gog and Magog for more than 15 years now. When I started in New York, people looked at me and asked whether this man has come from Mars or Venus. You couldn't believe what it was like 15 years ago. Really. Because nobody was speaking on this subject. Nobody. And I am in the United States of America. And you got the whole world of Islam in New York, you know. Everybody there. Every single Muslim community of the world is present in New York. And here comes this curious fellow called Imran talking about Gog and Magog. We never heard about it before. And of course the majority, absolute majority of the scholars, overwhelming majority of the scholars are saying, no, he's wrong. He's wrong. Gog and Magog cannot be released. The barrier is still standing. Why do they hold this opposition? Why? We have a problem of methodology. At the very beginning of the Quran, Allah teaches a lesson. But it has escaped the attention of many of us. He says that he ordered the angels to bow down to Adam alayhi salam. فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيس. This sentence is not constructed by accident. No. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not deficient in the use of language. No. There is a reason why this sentence is constructed like this. He ordered the angels to bow, to prostrate. And they all prostrated. In other parts of the Quran, Jamia, they all prostrated. Illa Iblis. If you take a verse of the Quran in isolation, or you take a hadith in isolation, the Americans call it standalone, you'll have to come to the conclusion, inescapably, that Iblis is an angel. Can't get away from that. This is the defective methodology. Iblis is an angel. In fact, in my early years as a student, when I was green, I remained green for a long time, I was also battling with it. But it has to be an angel. And then I went dabbling into Christian teaching. They talk about a fallen angel. Oh, he fell down. Because we had not as yet been grounded in methodology. But when you go to the rest of the Quran, you say, hey, wait a minute, I made a mistake there. Because here Allah speaks about the angels. They don't have any free will. They don't have any self-directed will. They don't have choice. وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. They have to do whatever they are told to do. So if they are a creation which must obey, no choice in the matter, And this fellow disobeyed. It looks as though he wasn't an angel, eh? Maybe I made a mistake, eh? Oh my gosh. This is a rotten methodology. To take a verse of the Quran in isolation. And then of course Allah confirmed it all when I went to Surah Al-Kahf, I saw it there straight in my face. وَكَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. This is not by accident. This is the Lord of the heavens and the earth teaching methodology for study, for the pursuit of knowledge. Do not make the mistake of taking any verse of the Quran or any hadith or anything in isolation and coming to a conclusion. You could be correct, but you can also be wrong. And sometimes when you make a mistake, that's it for you. You're damaged forever and ever. You can't trust you anymore. And that's what, unfortunately, they have done. There's one hadith, only one, in Sahih Muslim, that after Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns, the true Messiah will kill the false Messiah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ يَأْجُوجَ وَمَأْجُوجَ. Ba'atha. But the Quran uses a different word for release. In Surah Al-Anbiya, إِذَا فُتِحَتْ يَأْجُوجُ وَمَأْجُوجَ. When Gog and Magog are released, they're opened. That is the release. And ba'atha means to send or to raise. Well, it couldn't mean to raise here. Why? Because they've been raised long ago. And they were committing fasad long before we built the barrier. So it has to mean Allah will send Gog and Magog at that time. And the first of them will pass by the Sea of Galilee and start to drink the water. And by the time the last of them pass, they'll say, there used to be water here. The Sea of Galilee is almost dry. Did you know that? It has now reached a level where it can no longer be revived. So it's essentially dead, waiting to dry up. I think that qualifies as evidence that there's some kind of a passage there for Gog and Magog. But because the hadith says that after Nabi Isa alayhi salam kills Dajjal, their understanding is that only at that time will Allah bring down the barrier, and only at that time will Gog and Magog be released. And Imran Hosein, 15 years now, a voice crying in the wilderness. But you cannot be angry with your brothers, they're more learned than you are. All that we can do is to pray that someone will tell them this is wrong methodology. When you go to the Quran to find out when will the barrier come down, remember we only have a hadith in Sahih Bukhari about the vision while he was sleeping. When we go to the Quran, when will Allah bring down the barrier? We find in Surah Al-Anbiya the verse of all verses. In fact, there are two verses. وَحَرَامٌ عَلَى قَرْيَةٍ أَهْلَكْنَاهَا. Notice this is the only passage of the Quran I recite word by word.